welcome to this week's episode of Terminal Velocity Podcast. I'm Scott.
I'm Andrew.
And this week we're going to be covering, on top of our All Points Bulletin that we'll get to shortly, we're going to be covering in Tapping the Speed Force, Cosmic Ghost Rider.
HyperTiming with Locke and Key, Volume 1.
And then Running the Cosmic Treadmill with Batman Hush. This was a big recommendation from Andrew to read. I know this was a big important book for him, so we'll get to that a little bit later.
It's important.
So let's kick it off with our All Points Bulletin.
Alrighty. What do we have here? Wasn't a great week for news, but there's a couple things stood out. The Dark Phoenix, the trailer has finally dropped. No longer X-Men. It's just Dark Phoenix with an X logo. Probably to distance themselves from the Disney merger, but
Did you watch it?
Sort of. Like, I don't even think I put the volume on too much. It was kind of like...
Yeah.
It looks like Professor X is the villain again, I guess.
That's what some of the articles are alluding to. The big other question is who's in the grave, but the main lead is that basically Charles is, of course, the villain of all of the X-Men stories, I guess, up to this point, which is... I mean, you can't say it's wrong.
Magneto's kind of there again. He's just, hanging around.
He's got his brotherhood, which will be interesting to see come to life on the screen. I did try watching the leaked, I guess, Russian trailer version, which had no sound. And then I gave up, realizing that, no, this will actually come out in a day or two.
Yeah.
I can't say I gave a shit.
Yeah, it's a thing, as I like to say. It just, there was nothing that wowed me. It actually looks more of the same as The Last Stand. Like, it doesn't...
That's what I was worried about.
It kind of feels the same as that, and considering it's by the same people, as it's literally their second attempt at this story, I'm thinking even a smaller budget, so I'm not even sure how this is going to work.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why cracking the whole Dark Phoenix thing is so hard to get on screen. Or is it...
Oh, I know.
Maybe it's because they're trying to rush the Dark Phoenix and not just setting up the Phoenix aspect.
Yeah, well, I think they just... Dark Phoenix is a pretty big buzzword for X-Men fans, at least as far as Fox is concerned. So they're just kind of trying to jump on this to sell it to you. Like, hey, we got a real comic movie, guys. Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, I can't say that. This is definitely one I will rent.
Yeah, not even sure point. If it's on Netflix maybe or Disney streaming. You can't you have to have Phoenix first before you have Dark Phoenix, and they just don't get that. And this is very much the last I think X-Men regular series run of the Fox films now that Disney is purchase Fox.
I would fully expect so. I'd expect this to be that last piece, and then it'll get folded in.
Well, Dark Phoenix, the title kind of indicates they're just kind of shit this one out and hoping to make a couple bucks off it.
Mm-hmm. And it is pushed until next year, which I thought was interesting. It was supposed to come out this year, but they've pushed it out for another...
They needed new Sophie Turner scenes filmed, and she was busy with Game of Thrones, apparently. Allegedly.
Yes, we're not in the know. We don't work in the industry, but we will speculate with the best of them. Okay. One thing that I think is interesting when we're getting into talking about TV shows tying into comics and what they're doing is the naming of Elseworlds on the CW crossover now that's going to be going through, I guess, Flash, Arrow, and Supergirl.
Yeah.
Part of me gets excited about that because it's Elseworlds. Okay, This is going to be a crazy story that's going right out there into the multiverse, going to touch on a whole bunch of different points, potentially meaning nothing in the rest of the series.
Yeah, I think they're calling it Elseworlds because there will be characters from parallel worlds in it. I'm not overly sold that it's going to be anything grandiose or anything, but it is going to be a backdoor pilot for Batwoman. Mm-hmm. It's gonna expand upon Superman, which I hope leads to a series, and who knows what else.
Yeah, because apparently one of the characters, again, full speculation based on the articles we're reading, is the Monitor.
So they're gonna. So maybe this is the crisis that was talked about in season 1 of The Flash.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. That this might be the death of Barry Allen.
Hey, let's see him shrivel up into nothing and vanish into the Speed
Let's
Force.
see what happens. But then it comes down to, so where's the Wally West that takes over for him?
He's dead.
He doesn't exist. That's in a different story.
And, sad bit of news. Actually, maybe you should take this one. I'm not sure how to say his name.
So we heard that this week there was a passing of Norm Brayfogle. Passed away at the age of 58. Nothing is coming out to say what exactly was the cause of death. It's a fairly young age for somebody to be passing.
Yeah.
So I would assume that this was either,
Very personal.
a very personal thing, or this is an unfortunate battle with, one of the big diseases. But this is just one of many of the, historic artists that we've lost this year. And I know looking through some of his art, there was a lot of iconic.
Very much so. And having recently cataloged my back catalog, there's a lot of his stuff in there, and it's very iconic Batman stuff, especially. So, rest in peace. It's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Rest in peace. If you've got any of the covers, definitely maybe pull them out and hang them on your walls. If you're going to be in any rotations, it would probably be a pretty cool thing to do this.
That's a good idea. And better news. Let's see here.
There's another story and this one I think is only interesting because they're making it interesting, and that is with the She-Hulk.
Yeah, I was about to pluck that one.
So I'll let you take it away.
Well, apparently just revealed that She-Hulk, Hulk as she is now known, is the strongest there is. So I don't know. I guess that leaves the immortal Hulk out of everything. I don't know how that plays into everything, but all their, crossing over with the Celestials and everything has led to a big power boost for Jennifer Walters there.
Yeah, so it comes with a bit of a caveat of now she's the most powerful. Now she's the strongest there is because of this, everything that's going on in the current Avengers title.
Did they fight, Scott?
No, but her and Thor made out.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's the thing now.
Interesting.
And we're all the
Isn't that a little bit soon, Thor? Really?
Yeah, it is.
Jeez.
So what else is coming through is continued coverage and leaks from the Joker movie set.
He's a sad clown, Scott.
Which keeps making me more and more depressed about this movie.
I will say I did finally watch the subway footage where he's walking out and he's got the good mannerisms and all that, but then I'm drawn to the diamonds on his eyes, and I get, he's maybe a proto Joker. He's not quite Joker yet. It's Elseworlds, whatever. It still sucks.
Yeah.
It just misses the mark. Like, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, anyways, that's, like I said, that's the thing.
That's the thing. And this one, I think we're going to touch on this when we talk about our pick of the weeks, potentially. But there was some upheaval that went on in the Heroes in Crisis book.
Oh, boy.
Now, I know I came out saying, I'm not reading this. This is not something I'm interested in. And God damn it, I did pick it up. I did read it. And I'm going to continue to read it to see exactly what the fuck happened. I did get suckered in. It's a really, really well laid out issue. It really is.
Well, the Heroes in Crisis has led to maybe podcasters in crisis, because I wanted to start a whole new segment called What the Fuck? For these kind of moments where, what happens in that book happens. And I'm not going to touch on that just yet, because it is spoiler territory, and we'll try and give you a little warm up before you get there. But yeah, let's talk about that in a bit.
Okay, fair enough. We'll do that there. Just trying to see if there's any other news stories that I wanted to kind of cross off here.
There was that Cassandra Nova story. I kind of glanced at it.
Yeah, so Cassandra Nova has been working her way through. You're referring to the one through the X books, right?
Yeah.
She's kind of been the main foil for the X-Men Red.
She's like evil girl Xavier, kind of. His sort of fake twin thing that happened during Morrison.
Yeah, it was actually one of the things I really, really liked about Morrison's run on the X-Men. There was some of it was good and some of it was bad. It wasn't as prolific as his JLA stuff, but the Cassandra Nova really was menacing in that book, and it came across really, really well.
Just the idea of a female Professor X is creepy enough.
Yeah, she has none of the altruistic tendencies whatsoever that Xavier has. So has no problem just walking straight into somebody's mind and completely screwing with them. So it's actually a good balance for Jean Grey versus her, given their power sets anyway. Mm-hmm. But I can't say I give a shit. I'm just more interested in what's happening in Extermination and what that's actually going to play out to mean for the rest of the books going forward.
Fingers are crossed.
Current storylines. They've wrapped up X-Men Blue now so that we can focus on what's happening in an Extermination.
So Black and Red are so far anyways continuing.
Okay.
No, that's what I'm asking.
Right now the stories are continuing, yeah.
So
they'll
there's
be
no
wrapping up soon.
So those books are wrapping up as well?
Right, and I think there's actually been a delay on Extermination.
I heard, a 3-week delay on that.
That's not going to wrap up. I think it sounds like the timing of that is wrapping up a little bit like Secret Wars, where the end of that will come out after other books have potentially already launched.
And spoiled it.
And either spoiled it or left you still with what the hell is happening here? What is this new existence that we've got going on? So, yeah, we'll see how that one plays out. As I've talked about in previous weeks, I'm really on board for a relaunch in the X-Men titles, and I'm happy that they're getting some new love.
Well, Uncanny X-Men is definitely something I'm excited about, so I'm hoping that it's what we hope for it. Yeah, I don't want to say expect. I kind of expect it to be a kind of a back to basics book, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that pretty much wraps the news. Okay. Nothing really stands out to me.
No, it was a fairly light news week. A lot of the stories were just there was a lot more of just, starting stories, and there wasn't much to finish on them. It was just kind of pieces for the sake of having pieces. So let's move into tapping the Speed Force.
I think that's a good idea.
With the Cosmic Ghost Rider.
Yes.
I'm very curious to see. So this was my pick of the week a few weeks ago with number 3, just because of how crazy the character is. Now, I know a lot of people are probably not on board with this actual character, with this reimagining of...
And initially, I totally wasn't on board with it. The idea sounded ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And it is, but it's ridiculous in an awesome way. I finally read the issues, and wow. This character, this book has no right existing, and yet it's incredible. I don't know what to say. It's just so off the wall bonkers. I've enjoyed this kind of like Elseworlds kind of take on the Marvel universe, and then where Frank kind of ends up in this predicament, and there's just something cool about looking at a Ghost Rider that's a Punisher with a baby Thanos chained to his chest as he's trying not to be violent in front of him so he can raise him. And this one issue where he's fighting Cable, who shows up with like a team saying, "You're gonna fuck up the future."
Number 3.
Like, it doesn't work, Frank. But he's like, I don't care. I'm determined to raise him right. And this like baby Thanos is watching him just like murder everyone in the Marvel universe again. And Cable's like side step 1 or something like that. He's body slide, and he's getting older and older and recruiting new heroes, and he just keeps wasting them. I mean, the Watcher is there, and he's like, "Look, it's gonna be something." And
Sky Baby,
Sky
Baby Thanos refers to him. Sky Baby is there to watch, and Frank realizes that, okay, this is when something important happens, so this means something like I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Sky Baby has to correct him. Like, what makes you think you raising a child would end good, would end nicely for anyone?
I love the scene where he's in the bar, and the bartender's like, "Hey, no babies in here," and he's like, "No, this baby's okay." He's like, "Well, I'm old enough for the two of us." He's like, "Seriously, no babies in here," and he's like, "It doesn't matter. You're all gonna die anyways." And they just don't get what he's saying because they don't know he's a herald. Yeah. And then suddenly, like, they finally decide to ask him what's the deal, and he's like, he points up to the sky. He's like that, and it's like Galactus is there to devour the world, and it's crazy.
It's a crazy book. highly recommended from me only because of how crazy it is. So I'm really happy you enjoyed it.
Well, in a comic world right now where it's not a whole lot of fun per se, like the stories are very serious, very melodramatic, very. It's refreshing to get a book where you can just kind of read and laugh. Like
it's fun with
I
a sense of
legitimately
no
laugh.
consequence.
Yeah, it'll literally come and go like a fart in the wind, but
Yeah.
it will. Ultimately, it's a fun ride.
Yes,
I never wanted a Punisher Ghost Rider mashup. I love both characters. I thought this was such a bizarre concept. Thank God they thought of it, because it's been. I'm literally laughing at panels as I'm reading it.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a lot of fun, and I'm a fan of the concept of those two characters on their own.
Yeah,
I've never thoroughly enjoyed their books necessarily, so I'm glad the mashup is actually working,
now,
and I'm glad other people.
Who's the artist on this book? I can't recall off the top of my head.
I'll have to look that up. Give me a second.
But it just continues on. It's just that he's like. Just to give you a quick premise, it takes place after the cosmic Thanos storyline. I forget what it was called.
Thanos wins. Dylan Burnett is the artist.
See, I think I'm a new fan of Dylan Burnett. I really enjoyed his pencil or his style with the book, and just his expressions, and
it works.
It really does. I can't get enough of this. It's just so ridiculous. And now the next issue is going to be adult Thanos, who's now a time traveler but a Punisher as well.
So it's 4 issues. It'll be 4 issues as of next week. So it's currently only 3 issues in. Highly recommend anybody go out and find it at your local shop.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it.
It's a zanier version than what you actually get in the Thanos Wins stuff in the Thanos books. I think it was Thanos 13.
Yeah, not to be cliche, but it's like a balls to the wall kind of story. It's just doesn't really let go. Like he wakes up in Valhalla and he's like restless because Frank Castle can't just be happy, right? It's he's in his element when he's killing because he's a psychopath.
Well, and he knows he hasn't earned rest.
No, and that's true. So in his twisted sense of morality, he pretty much does everything he can to pretty much be kicked out of heaven, right? So somehow Odin just then means to restore him to his cosmic spirit of vengeance form.
Yeah.
Back in the past for some reason.
Yeah, so he's all over the place. There's no straight continuity on timeline for this, which is the thing that I like most about it, because it has no consequence, apparently, in the current MCU or Marvel continuity.
No, and I think it does exist in its own kind of like a alternate reality.
And I think that's the only way he's getting away with doing all of the stuff.
For sure, because it's like shitting on how many characters. Poor Cable, this week, in his last couple of weeks, he's been killed twice.
He just can't catch a break.
So it's totally bonkers. He goes and he decides he's going to assassinate Thanos as a baby, but then he can't. And Thanos is already nuts.
Punisher can't kill a baby.
Yeah,
big surprise.
But Thanos is kind of still already a Titan, dictator. So
it's just kind of inherently in him.
And he goes to Galactus for help, thinking because they were cosmic buddies for decades or whatever in the past
centuries.
So he goes to past centuries. So he goes to meet Galactus in the past, who he gets to cyclically read his mind to see that they were companions and whatnot, and thinks that that Galactus will help him, but clearly that's not Galactus. No. He's like, turn over the kid, I will kill it.
Yeah. It's like, Galen, no, I didn't come to you for this. I came to you for help, man.
And then, everything goes crazy and the Watcher shows up and he's like, this will not go well. And I don't want to ruin any more of the book for you. It's honestly a fun read. If you're looking for something, especially after Heroes in Crisis, that you just want to laugh and have some fun.
Yes.
Check out this book.
Yes. 100% recommended. That is 100% recommended by Scott, and Scott approved.
It's 30 Helens agree, right?
30 Helens agree. Cosmic Ghost Rider is one hell of a ride. Okay.
I think we're good on that one.
That was
it's a short one, but I think it's good.
Yeah. So let's take, now to take it away from zany, fun craziness, let's go
to Darked Up and Fucked.
Yeah.
Dark.
Yeah.
Did I say darked up?
Darked up
Oh,
and
jeez.
fucked. Yeah.
I need sleep.
Let's get into
Dark and fucked up.
HyperTiming this week.
With Lock and Key Volume 1.
Yes. So I have read all volume 1 through 6, I believe, of this storyline. So I don't believe you have read any of this up until this point.
I have read Volume 1. I went out and bought it knowing we were gonna tackle this one, and I didn't know what to expect from it. I guess Joe Hill is Stephen King's son.
Yeah, so we'll give a quick synopsis on it. Joe Hill is Stephen King's son, so he is, surprise, surprise, also a horror author.
Mm-hmm.
He's an actual prose author. I've got a couple of his books that I'm slowly working through. He's got a couple TV shows, I believe, that are in the works, based on those books. But this is the story of a family that moves into their old family estate after some tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
And in this house, there are keys, and the keys unlock various abilities, powers, magical keys, I guess is just what we'll call them.
In Volume 1, there's only, I think, 2 keys. A third key might, I think, been hinted at, if I read correctly, but there was like the Anywhere key, which is like a key to like pretty much anything.
Yep.
And then there was, I forget the name, the Ghost key or something like that.
Yep.
But
and then there was a third key that was found, but it's about a family who
I think we can spoil it a little bit here.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
this is going to be a spoiler
while.
talk. Here's your warning, spoilers.
So there's a family. It starts off with a family who have lost their father after he was brutally murdered by 2 high school kids, basically.
Yeah, he was a guidance counselor
at the high school. He has 3 kids, Tyler, Bode, and Kinsey.
Yes.
Who then are now dealing with all of the trauma that they've gone through with their father being brutally murdered in front of them.
I believe it's their uncle that they move in with the mother. They move across country to the family estate.
They move from California all the way to Massachusetts.
What did they call it? Keywood or Key Manor? Key House, yeah.
So it's up in Lovecraft. They've gone all the way back up. So it's got, obviously by that name, you understand that there's going to be some horror tones to it. This is not a happy-go-lucky, feel-good kind of story.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. So some of the things, I'm actually curious to hear what your opinions are, because you just read this for the first time and haven't seen how it ends.
Yeah,
so I'm curious to see what you think.
So I will say first off, I didn't know what to expect of this book. I hadn't actually heard of it prior to you mentioning it to me or telling me about it a couple months back. And I didn't realize it was written by Joe Hill, which I thought, well, that's intriguing. But sometimes when you bring in authors from other forms of writing, that doesn't always translate well for a comic book. However, I was quite impressed with this story, and it took me a little bit to get into it. Like, I was reading it, and it wasn't bad, but like, just I can't really relate to the line of thinking of the main characters. But like, you very quickly get pulled into it once it kind of establishes who they are and their kind of inner monologues. It took a structure of, I think each issue is kind of from the perspective of one of the different children in the story, at least the first couple issues. And I will say this book genuinely creeped me out a little bit, which is a 100% first for me in any comic book. And I don't scare easily, like, at all. I'm a horror movie like buff. There's just something inherently creepy about this character. Oh my gosh, I forget the name of the characters.
The Echo.
The Echo. Well, anyways, this Bode discovers this key that opens this one door that once you pass through it, you turn into a ghost. And they think that naturally he's just made up. He's using his imagination to cope with losing his father, but he's in fact actually turning into a ghost and can see things that are going on. And he discovers this little well house on the property where a voice is speaking back to him and claims to be an echo, or his echo. Turns out it's not. It's kind of like this creepy water demon witch woman, like, living in the bottom of the well. But you find out that she's actually communed with their father and the uncle when they were children. but they can't remember it once they become adults. And so there's hinting at a storyline about the father and the uncle in the past, which led to her being trapped in this well. Mm-hmm. And so she manipulates Bode. She manipulates Bode into hunting down the key, so the keys, so she can actually escape. She was also kind of behind the death of the father through manipulating the killer, Sam Lesser, I believe was the name of the character. Kind of comes from like a broken home, abusive, and the father actually tried to help this kid because he was actually intelligent and through various
he was damaged, but he was still an intelligent kid. Yeah,
and through her manipulations, it kind of turns him towards what he does. Tyler's dealing with the guilt of he in anger said that he wished that that someone would kill his dad, and so Sam Lesser being under that kind of influence and his own how do you say fucked up way of thinking, he acts upon it, and so yeah, like I don't want to say much more than that because it's totally a worthy read, and there's just some panels, like the art is cartoony, but it's got a sharpness to it that I find like that adds to the creep factor, like especially the way they draw the echo coming out of the well behind the kid in this one page just really stands out, and yeah, like I'm reading it at night, late at night in the dark, and honestly, it gives you a little creep factor. So
yeah. So the artist, it's written by Joe Hill, and it's art by Gabriel Rodriguez.
Yes.
And my one criticism on the art is that the faces all look similar.
Very much so.
So
it's very much like a Gary Frank syndrome.
Yeah. So if the hairstyles are very similar, it can sometimes be very easy to confuse certain characters. Now he's done a good job in making sure that they don't all look the same in the rest of their appearance, but it is the one catch and the one criticism that I have for it. But the way he draws, everybody looks sullen and a little unhappy and morose, so it really leads to the whole tone of the whole book, and the pacing is one of those things that I found really well and helps build that creep factor. You know what's going to happen before it happens.
There's nothing unpredictable about the book at all.
It's not a jump scare kind of thing where all of a sudden you're
it's just got this like it's this like, how do I describe it? It's got this like build up, and it's just this very slow build, and things just feel like it's getting more and more twisted, a little creepier, and like you honestly, because it's an unknown concept, like anything could go in there. Like you kind of by the end, like you got the mother who's turned into like an alcoholic, but you're still rooting for this family after this horrible tragedy, and it's almost like you want to like tell the panel like, look, turn around, but like it's got that horror movie feel to it. And I don't know what's going on, because I know they've been trying to make a TV series out of this a couple times, and it's kind of fallen apart.
Yeah, for some reason I don't know why this doesn't seem to translate.
This would perfectly translate to a television show, especially in today's market.
It really, really would. So hopefully it comes out. It's got a very, and this is going to sound really stupid, but it's got a very Hitchcock vibe to it, where you can like the music that his movies have in it. It's got that kind of feel where you can.
It's funny you say that, because reading it, I could almost hear that kind of music in my mind as I'm created for the feelings that I'm feeling with reading it.
Right.
You can definitely see the craft in his writing, and it's certainly got a plan.
It does.
It's definitely a book you have to be in the right mood for, because it's not one that I would have like been like, oh hey, I'm gonna pick this up and read, but it does have me hooked in a way that I want to continue with the rest of the series.
Yeah, I think if anybody is looking, and it's hard to find good comic book horror stories that are on the go, but if you're looking for one, and as we're approaching Halloween, this is probably a perfect book to be reading up to that point. Like I say, there's about 6 volumes in there. The story gets dark, and the mood continues.
I like to hear that.
It still has the whole it's got that whole It vibe to it as well, where it's the kids versus something evil, and whether they overcome it truly or not, it's what it's working towards. So
my only fear with it is that it doesn't have a full plan.
it has 100% a full plan.
Okay.
It actually is one of those books that wraps up really, really nicely through all of its. Once you get to that final volume, it really, really wraps the story nicely. You get an understanding of where the keys came from, what is really powering that, the main evil in the story. Like I say, he's taken a lot of things from his dad's writing and his dad's
You could
craft.
very much pick that up on that.
Yeah, and when you're reading it, if you don't know that he's Stephen King's son, you'll think, oh, this has got a Stephen King vibe to it.
It kind of does.
And then once you find out, you're like, oh, okay, no shit, Sherlock. But it's...
Honestly, if this is what he's doing this early in his career, I think he's going to surpass his father.
Now, I haven't read his novels.
Okay.
But yes, 100% his comics. His comic is... This is a fantastic horror comic book. It's one of the things that I wrote down. If you love a good horror comic, this is definitely the comic for you. Again, the main villain is just very, very creepy. You can see what's going to be coming, and it fills you with that little bit of dread of, oh, yes, shit, don't do this to a kid. Don't do this to a kid. The kid's 8 years old. Don't do this to the kid. But it happens. So, yeah. But it's really well paced. The art outside the faces is phenomenal. It's got great detail, really imaginative use and design of all the keys and the different locks. And again, as you get further into the story, you see like, oh my God, I never thought of like the way that they use some of the keys is just really, really phenomenal.
Well, I look forward, like this volume one very much is kind of the establishing story. So it's like, it has me wanting to like see the rest of the family kind of discover and learn about the keys and kind of, you know, whatever they're going to have to do to like deal with this threat. Because there's a huge threat to their family, and they don't really know it. They think of Sam Lesser as being the real threat, but he's truly not. He obviously, he was the threat. Yeah. I don't mean it like that. But like there's a bigger threat looming that they don't necessarily see by the end of volume one.
Yeah.
So I definitely like this recommendation.
That's awesome. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I haven't seen it at collected editions. You can obviously find the trade paperbacks at your local, probably your local comic shop or even your local bookstore.
I've seen it on Amazon.
You pick it up on Amazon. I haven't seen, and we just came back from a local convention.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
We'll throw that in at the end after the pick of the week. Or maybe just before the pick of the week is just part of a conversation. But I haven't seen issues. I haven't seen any of the issues out and about. Mm-hmm. So they might be a little bit harder to pick up if you're actually looking, if you're a bit of a completionist and want the actual issues.
Yeah, you probably need to find a real like warehouse type location that carries everything because mm-hmm. it's...
Or talk to your local shop. They might be able to order in the issues or at least be able to help you track some down. But
there's always digital, right?
Yeah. So... really strong recommendation on that one. Perfect for Halloween. We're probably going to try and cover... I'd like us to try and cover a few more horror things.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that I'd even like to revisit this one too at some point in the future.
Sounds good. Okay. So now let's move on to Running the Cosmic Treadmill.
Sweet.
Batman Hush.
Yeah. So, gotta put it out there that Batman Hush is now, I guess, outside of continuity, at least for the time being. We don't know how Rebirth is going to fully kind of wrap up with in terms of past continuity, but this is definitely a time capsule in terms of comics. Sorry.
Yeah, which is like, one of the things that I actually liked about the story is that it doesn't play into current continuity, and you end up getting... really good aspects of Batman's interplay with his various supporting cast.
Yeah, well, just to give you a quick, for those who aren't familiar, Batman Hush is it's from Batman 608 to 619, and it was written by Jeff Loeb and drawn by Jim Lee, which at the time was a big deal because Jim Lee hadn't been on a monthly book in years at this point. It was definitely pretty to look at least at the time. looking back at it, because I did actually reread everything again for the first time since it came out, and he's like Scott, I think you were saying.
Yeah, this morning you and I were talking about this. He is a fantastic splash page artist.
Yes.
And poster artist.
Yeah.
I know he did fantastic runs on X-Men and the X-Books and all that kind of stuff, and even into his own titles when he broke away for a little while. But I don't. And I know he did Justice League. I'm not as big a fan of Jim Lee as I thought I was.
Yeah, I
it was a little jarring.
I have feelings about Jim Lee, just even like from having met him at one point, but great characters, very dynamic. When he does the backgrounds, they're very, very detailed. Poses are a little outdated by today's standards now. It kind of does have that image feel to the look of the artwork. He does draw a great Batman. I do like how he redesigned kind of the costume for this run.
Yeah, I mean his character designs outside of the new costumes he did for the new 52. His actual using classic characters in that, he does nail them. They all look fantastic. And he gets around his static art by having the silhouette of activity happening into that point. So you can see what he did to help, convey the sequential of what was happening. But I think a lot gets lost in the sequential art of it when it's, here's a static panel, and here's all the dynamic movements that you missed up to this point.
Now, what do you think of the writing style? Now, I could be wrong, and that I'm wrong many times, but this is a very inner monologue driven story where most of it is told from Batman's perspective in his internal thought process. Yeah.
It's got a very noir vibe to it.
Comics have changed, right? I'm not thinking no. I don't think that the story is told this dramatically, through your own inner thoughts, like it was then.
No, it definitely has. It's definitely got that old, like I say, that old school vibe to it. The old noirish film kind of.
It's post thought bubbles. Yes. But
they've just
it's thought boxes.
Yeah, that's all it's been replaced with.
There are some important moments in this book in terms of the character. One, first of all, I'll just say that it was such a reminder of the things I miss about Batman. Like Oracle being part of the team, Huntress being a character that I know and understand what's going on with. Tim Drake as Robin. I was like, holy crap. There's Robin.
Yes, I know. That was one of those things that I wrote down. It was just seeing Tim Drake as Robin again. Not Red Robin, but Robin.
And a real Robin. For me, Damian Wayne just never fit the role.
It's one of those things that I loved about the Batman Fugitive and the Bruce Wayne murderer storylines, or the Bruce Wayne Fugitive murder storylines, was the pre-New 52 stuff. New 52 ruined things.
Yes.
I'm just going to say it. They fucking ruined things.
The idea of the reboot was a great idea because continuity had gotten very convoluted at that point. But they just went the wrong way.
They went hard left when they should not. I mean, they just really did screw it up. And it's not until you read some of these old storylines. Don't get me wrong. I actually didn't like Batman Hush.
I figured.
I'm not a fan of the story itself.
You know what? In rereading it, I will put forward that it's not as endearing to me as I remembered it.
But this might be
nostalgically, it was the book that brought me kind of back into collecting books and reading Batman on the regular.
And this might be the problem. I didn't read it when it was printed and when it came out, or even close to it.
Okay.
I've only ever read it after the fact, so it's never landed to me the quite way. Like the whole Tommy Elliott, as soon as he's introduced, you're like, okay, villain. It's like when you're watching Law and Order, and all of a sudden it's a major celebrity comes in. You're like, okay, now I know who killed that person.
And it's absolutely obvious from the get-go that this previously unmentioned childhood best friend of Bruce Wayne shows up, and he happens to cause Batman's in a situation has a head injury, And he happens to be the master surgeon.
Yeah, and he's always bested him when they were kids playing whatever strategic games they were playing.
Yeah. Which was like this weird tin soldier chess type game that they played. So you knew like this was like they tell you almost right away that he's Hush.
Yeah, within 2 issues.
There's some stuff that makes no fucking sense in the story, even at the time, which is like Harvey Dent shows up randomly. The story asks a lot of you. There's a lot in this story. This book asks you to just accept. So it's just asking you to accept that Two-Face went to Philadelphia and got healed up by Tommy Elliott, the master surgeon, who can also do plastic surgery, by the way.
Or he
flawless
reached out to him.
Yeah,
and
I
fixed him.
Yeah, and you know, it also had like with the Riddler, I think at that point he was dying of cancer, and you had to believe that the master surgeon also cured him of his lethal cancer.
He cured him using stuff from the Lazarus Pit. So this was kind of explained as, and that's why Ra's al Ghul would be coming after Riddler if
and there was a lot of threads from this story that played out in other stories. Namely, you know, Edward Nygma knowing Bruce's identity by the end.
Yes.
Or having deduced who Batman is through the moment of clarity through the Lazarus Pit, which makes no sense.
But which was actually the only thing that I actually thought was, oh well, good. He knows it, but he can't tell somebody the answer because then the riddle is worthless.
And he's also a dead man.
And he's also a dead man. But that was also the one thing where I was like, that is probably the best part of writing in this entire story.
Yeah, like
is that
it's definitely
good for you. You figured it out.
Well,
but you can't do anything with that.
What's crazy about this story is that Jeff Loeb has written some incredible Batman stories.
He really has.
Like The Long Halloween and
Dark Victory.
And this is not it.
No.
It's very much a book that was to showcase Jim Lee's art.
Yeah.
When he's kind of returned to DC. Some firsts that are important in the story is that this is one of the first times that Catwoman and Batman kind of acknowledge their relationship.
I wanted to talk about that part.
It's legitimately probably the main reason I like this book.
That's what I was going to ask you about.
It's where Bruce decides he trusts her enough after all these years to reveal his identity, which is awesome. And it, like, frankly, she's as close to a Lois Lane as you're going to get with Batman, and she is it's his opposite, but it's the only one that could ever be with him.
Which was another thing that I really liked about the in the stories when she's actually in the cave at one point, because Bruce is getting kind of patched up, and she sees him without his shirt on,
sees the
scars and everything, and she's like, "Oh my!" Like she had never actually pieced together just how broken and shattered his body might be.
Yeah,
and then sees the scar from their first encounter in costume,
where she almost she remembers in like an endearing fashion.
Yeah.
Which is, I just find hilarious. It's like giant claw marks across his chest or whatever. But yeah, like it was an important step. It's absolutely where Tom King is coming from, where he decided to pull these two together.
Yeah,
because it almost, in a weird way, feels like it's a continuation of where this left off.
I wanted to say that. Yeah,
and like fuck, that's
yes,
it's honestly
and everything. It really works through their relationship.
It's the first time you see Batman truly like realizing he's in love with somebody. Like, and he's had girlfriends obviously in previous storylines, but like it's the first one that she's always the one that got under his skin, no matter what. It's like, and Tom King totally in the current Batman is playing off that in spades. Another important part I thought was like, here's Batman and Nightwing done right.
Yes.
You get it's like, it's his eldest son. Like, Batman's going to be a dick a little bit about but it's not in the way Tom King is written. Like, it's like Dick Grayson is matured enough, and he's just, in this story, it's just he's kind of there to see how Bruce is doing post injuries and everything.
And it gets called out in the dialogue. It's like, he speaks to me in a way that no one else is able to or allowed to.
Yeah.
But he's earned that right.
He's earned
that's
where the current Batman kind of misses that mark.
And I think it's because of all the history that's led up to it with the New 52 stuff. That it doesn't... no one has earned anything in really.
No.
I'm really pissed off with the New 52 right now after reading this kind of thing, because no one has earned any of where they're at.
No. It's Rebirth is trying to reset the clock back without resetting it back. Like they don't want to fully say, yeah, we're going back, because I mean, fair enough. There might be fans of the New 52 who came into comics at that point.
It brought me back in after a while. I'll be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I don't know how it fucking brought me back in, but it did.
It was an exciting relaunch, right? So you thought, okay, here we go. It's where you can get in on the ground floor, but it was just so convoluted, and it basically was like the Image making DC into like Image. Mm-hmm. At least that's how it felt to me with New 52. But yeah, going back to Batman Hush. Like I said, nostalgically, I love this story. Reading it again, it's good to me, but definitely not in the upper echelon of Batman stories. Current Batman eclipses this tenfold. Like even in the issues where you're not as happy with it, it's still a much a superior book to this. But
three issues of the current run that trounce this,
yeah,
are the current ones where it was the Mr. Freeze going. It was 12 Angry Men.
Yes, Cold Nights.
Cold Nights. That I believe it was 3 issues.
It was, yeah.
Trounces all of these issues put together. I would say
most of Tom King's run, from what I've read, is superior to this, but I also see the threads where it couldn't have been without this, and. Yeah. This kind of revitalized, I think, Batman in a way, it kind of it put top tier talent on the book for the first time, and I think a long way. And I don't mean that to slight Brubaker and Rucker, but they weren't as high profile as they came to be at the time that they were on those books. Mm-hmm. This was a very, very high profile artist on the book. They clearly poured money into it in terms of the inking, the coloring, the production value. Like it went from, I believe with the original issues, it went from the regular pulp paper to glossy print with this.
I mean, you're right. It does look fantastic.
And it kind of brought this like retro feel back to Batman. It stepped away from the I'm a dick Batman to Batman the Crusader a little bit. And but I think it also played on your nostalgia for Jim Lee in the 90s and your nostalgia for Jeff Loeb with, The Long Halloween.
Yeah.
Another thing was this was the first book to hint at the notion of the return of Jason Todd. And in reading it, I going back to it, I wanted to see, because in the book it kind of reveals Jason Todd to be Hush in one issue, and then it's faked out saying, it was Clayface. But later on, and I remember this post with Under the Hood and all the stuff that came out afterwards, kind of revealed that it was actually Jason Todd in the first reveal. Yeah. So when he initially takes off the bandages, and that it is revealed that actually is Jason Todd, and then he off, side stage left or whatever.
I'm inaudibly rolling my eyes at this entire concept.
Yeah, so this is a cringeworthy time with it, but like it was revealed that it was in fact Jason Todd. They switched places with Clayface during that chase, and technically that fits. It's not great though. I've never been a fan of never been a fan of the return of Jason Todd. Just like I wasn't a fan of the return of Barry Allen or Hal Jordan. Like it was one of those deaths that I thought was permadeath. Like it had, because it meant something. Mm-hmm. The reveal is a cool shock value moment, and it being like, but it was Clayface, kind of made sense. But
it works better as the psychological torture than it does the actual, he's back from the dead.
Jason Todd, in hindsight, might have been a good reveal for Hush, because they threw it in there just to kind of like, you knew it was Tommy Elliott. Mm-hmm. Like right away you knew it was him. So they did this to kind of like fake you out. They have people wearing the same trench coat throughout the story, so you're like, who is it, right? But and then when Hush actually shows up and he's wearing the jade circle on his neck, you're like thinking, well, really?
Yeah, I can't.
But then again, and then the other retro thing in there was Harold.
Yeah.
showing up, the little like troll man,
And then they
Quasimodo
kill
guy
him.
living in the cave who did all of Batman's tech. Yeah, he betrayed Bruce because
To get him
the
to be
master
quote
surgeon
unquote
allowed him to be normal,
Yeah.
and he could talk, and then he gets shot in the head.
Yeah.
By Hush.
By Hush. Yeah, there's so many things that I just didn't like about this.
It's.
It has a time and a place.
I will say this
I don't
from
live
in a
that time
way.
and place.
This is like Batman '66, the movie, where it's like it's a mashup of all the greatest hits villains.
But it doesn't work in that same way.
It's a bit of a
for
stretch.
some
It's a bit of
people,
a it's a stretch, and like again, if you like Batman, it's not something you'll regret reading. It can be pretty at times. You should see Scott's face at that. But it really does have its place in Batman history for some of the elements that it introduced. And with like the Catwoman thing, it wasn't like a thing the way it is now.
Right.
She was always his villain. There was an attraction, but it never went anywhere. She dated Bruce Wayne periodically as Selena Kyle, and it kind of never went anywhere.
It's probably the only redeeming part of the whole story is how they play up the Batman Catwoman dynamic. Outside of that, I don't think there's really much other reason to read it in Batman continuity because nothing else in it really relates to anything.
Not anymore. No.
No.
At the time, it was very much ingrained in the continuity and set the path that it was on. But yeah, at this point, it's almost like reading an Elseworlds in terms of the storyline.
So if you approach it in that regard, you might actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I mean, it has no skin in the game anymore, so it doesn't
No.
really matter. So you could probably find things that you would enjoy it. Just don't be looking for the best Killer Croc design you've ever seen.
Yeah, it was.
I don't really know where his eyes were on his face.
Well, it was a mutation, as they explained. It was and it was undone literally in the next arc, in the Brian Azzarello arc. He was already healed, and like in that because Eduardo Rizzo's drawing certainly
Right.
doesn't draw that. And Croc was kind of like a gangster type thing again,
And if you want to see a better Joker design, you've got Janen's art. You've got
I'm totally not a fan of the Joker design.
Jimenez's art currently in the Justice League books.
It was
there's
pretty.
So many
It was
better.
pretty bad. It was fun to see the classic Harley show up, though.
It was really good to see that. I'm a much bigger fan of that design than whatever the hell they're
the
doing.
Margot
right
Robbie
now.
design that they got going now.
Stupid shit.
So
Okay.
yeah, that's Batman Hush.
That was running the cosmic treadmill with Batman Hush.
Scott jumped off the treadmill a while ago.
I fell off of it and quite happily lay on the ground catching my breath because that was painful.
So, do you want to talk about Toronto Comic Book Show briefly before we go?
Yeah, we can
next?
do a
Okay.
quick chat. So we just came back from the Toronto Comic Book Convention, which isn't the same thing as Fan Expo. Fan Expo being more like the San Diego Comic Con with a lot more displays, a lot more cosplay and everything.
I'd describe Fan Expo as like the pop culture convention.
This is a return to form. If you were hunting for books, this is where you went.
Yeah, it's it's in a hotel, I guess rec room type thing,
Banquet hall.
banquet hall, and you just kind of have like rows and rows of comic dealers and dollar bins and $2 bins, and then outrageous inflated priced wall
criminally
comics.
inflated. Going to one guy who'll sell you something for $10, going to another guy who wants $40 for it.
Yeah,
maybe dropping to $30. Like
you were tempted by the $200
hunting.
Venom, the Lethal Protector
that
#1.
blew my mind. I have a copy of that comic, and I don't know why it's worth $200 or why they're trying to make it worth $200.
Hey, the first appearance of Jason Todd, or the return Under the Hood, Batman 646, I think it was going for $250. Which is nuts.
No, that's crazy.
It wasn't even graded. That was even the funnier part.
Well, some guys tried to put gradings on.
Yeah, I saw that on their label, on their
guy-
stickers.
There was a guy doing grading in the back if you wanted to take something in. So
I meant there were guys that had
But yes.
put their own score on it, like
Yeah.
it's supposed to mean something.
Here's a 5.0 by my own standard. This is pretty good. I mean, a lot of the guys were willing. They would say, "Okay, that's the sticker price. Make me an offer." Like a lot of them showed up with books. They didn't want to go home with that inventory.
Yeah, and this is very much a show to offload your stuff, but it's great. Like in theory, it's great to like find the books that you can to fill some holes in your collection, and I did find some stuff. That being said, like it advertised that it's modern comics. When they say modern, they're talking about like the definition of like post 1987
Yeah.
modern.
Like I went in hoping to fill in. I've been reading Mr. Miracle digitally, and I have decided that I want to have the actual physical copy. So I was asking around, do you have any Mr. Miracle? Outside of like 70s or 80s run on Mr. Miracle, they didn't have anything quote unquote modern. Modern, like you say, was anything outside of bronze, silver.
I guess we should have looked for current.
Yeah, that was what we should have looked for is current. But even the hot bins with mainstream or current were still ones that were mostly like 90s.
Well, I was happy to find my Saga books.
Yes.
They're pretty cheap.
I haven't jumped into that path yet of trying to pick those up. I might just stick with the giant omnibuses just because
It's probably the smarter way.
Yeah, it'll be less costly, I think, in the long run, and take up a little bit less.
You know, I'm ridiculous,
but you're willing to do it. But it was good to go hunting.
Yeah, and I very much enjoyed that. It cost $5 to go in. We spent a couple hours looking for deals, and you can find them. There's deals to be found.
I was glad I didn't take my kids. I initially thought about it. But they would have been bored senseless, and it would have been very difficult.
You wouldn't have been able to find anything. But
no, it would have been because it literally was just vendors and boxes and just pouring through.
Yeah,
like
it's old, very old school
vinyls and that kind of thing. It would be very much that same thing for the kids.
Yeah, I'd say I'd definitely go again, like next year maybe, just again for just the deal hunting, but. Yeah, if you want new books, you gotta get them now. Apparently.
Yeah, get to your shops and find them, or find a way to get to some of the other local towns and see what their shops have for you. That's your best bet.
All right, so I think it's time to move on to pick of the week. This was interesting. This one.
This was a different problem from what we had in previous weeks.
There was nothing that blew me away, but everything was good.
Yes.
And so I had a tough time picking my pick. I narrowed it down to about 5 books. I've kind of ranked them. And do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
All right. So I'll name off the 5 that were in my top 5 this week, and I'll have one honorable mention.
Okay.
So there was Action Comics 1003. There was Batgirl number 27. Ben Reilly's Scarlet Spider 24, which surprised me. There was Extermination number 3 of 5. And then there was Flash 55. And I think Scott thinks he knows what I picked.
I'm thinking you're going with Ben Reilly.
You would be wrong, but it was close. He was number 5.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a good book. It was a good read. But my number 1 this week's Flash 55. And I liked that it was this Halloween-centric story. I'm kind of like... It alludes to some stuff that may play into Heroes in Crisis. But when I say it's number 1, it's like I have 5 number 1s.
It's just the one you want to give the title to right now.
Pretty much, yeah.
There's only enough room for one name on the placard, so this. And
I say it, and it's kind of like I'm wavering even as I'm saying it, because I liked Action Comics 1003 just about as much. Batgirl was is a steady number 2 there.
I had a feeling you might go for that one only because of the return of a classic kind of costume.
I like the return of the design, except for the mask.
Yeah,
the prototype as they call it in the issue. But Batgirl's been a solid book. Like the hero has her internal struggle and physical struggles. It's got the allusions to Oracle's past. Like it was a solid read. But yeah, I went with Flash 55 because one, I've been dying for Flash to be a top book. I liked the spooky element to it, where it's like kind of like, well, I don't even know what part of this forces this fucking played into, but I've been enjoying the characterization of Iris West. Mm-hmm. I almost said Alan because of the past there, but I really like. She's actually a kind of a fun character, and I kind of like to see more of that character in the book.
I think her character's gotten better now that they're playing into
The past, and she remembers
the pre-Flashpoint stuff,
well,
and they actually say like
the Flashpoint. Yeah,
yeah. So,
I enjoy I'm enjoying that element of this book. So like that plays into my decision here. One that I didn't put in the top 5 is Doomsday Clock, and I'm pretty sure I know where this falls for others. But I like where it's going. I couldn't put it. I don't know if I was tired at the time of reading. I just couldn't put it up there. I thought Batman was written kind of doofy. Like I just feel like he wouldn't just go guns blazing into a situation. He would have assessed this a lot better than he did, just because he didn't know their capabilities. Which I did like seeing the yellow oval suit. Like I liked the characterization of the Joker in it. He's kind of the zany Joker.
he's batshit crazy.
I like the comedian, even for the comedian. He's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
It was a good read, and it was a good turn in the Doomsday Clock series, but it's still just kind of like a cog in the story for me. So it doesn't, on its own, it didn't feel like a great issue. Maybe the best issue of the series, though.
By far.
And I like the turn that it's taking. Extermination #3, again, back to basics, X-Men. I enjoyed it. But because it didn't really advance the story much for me, I felt that it worked. It will work in the whole, but as an individual issue, it couldn't quite be #1. Ben Reilly's Scarlet Spider. Just I'll say quickly, it was just fun chase episode where he's like Kane's trying to kill him. Mephisto screwed him basically because he broke the deal and made everyone think that he just like let the little girl die, and so now he's like he's stabbed, he's like bleeding out, he's fighting, trying to escape Kane, who's like had enough with him for what he's done, kind of thing. And then he ends with looking like he's sacrificed, because he's essentially sacrificed himself to stop another character from being shot. So, and then he keels over. And then next issue looks to be the final issue. So don't know what's gonna happen. I don't think he's gonna die. I think that he's gonna be rewarded as finally having turned his life around, kind of thing. But I don't know. It was a fun chase book. Action Comics 1003. I really enjoyed it. I like that the cover. I thought it was ridiculous because it's such a 90s cover where it's like, can Batman save the Man of Steel or whatever, and then it's like all that's in the book is like, hey Batman, thanks for helping, bye. Yeah Thanks for the save.
A quick little cameo. Batman mugs
and that
somebody.
It very much reminded me of the this Action Comics issue back during the Electric Superman storyline, where it's like the secrets of the Batcave, and it shows Superman looking all like freaked out, and Batman's in shadow in the back, and it was literally just a cameo.
I remember.
So again, decent week, but Flash, I just thought was kind of cool. The allusions to Heroes in Crisis, which he doesn't know about yet. So I feel that there might be some connective tissue there.
Yeah. Okay, I'm a little bit surprised at that. I mean, it was an okay book. It was definitely better than the last two.
Maybe that's why.
With the Trickster. But I'm okay. I'm a little bit shocked at that. So I came down to 3 titles.
Okay.
Big surprise. Like I said, I wasn't going to read Heroes in Crisis, and I ended up reading it. And despite being pissed off at what they've done to Wally, completely killing him off screen with no fanfare whatsoever is ridiculous. But I'm willing to go with it to find out what actually is happening in this story. So I know a lot of other people are pissed off because comic nerds like to get pissed off at things when things don't go their way. So I'm not going down that road. It's more of show the character a little bit more respect. At least show me him fighting something, and I think it'll play out that way.
Frankly, it probably will. Like, this is kind of the introductory, and knowing King, like, there's going to be payoff for this.
Yes.
And it's well written. Like, it's I thought so anyways. And I feel they threw Wally and Arsenal. Arsenal also kicked the bucket. Apparently,
Yes.
confirmed. As he kept saying.
I did love seeing that. That was actually really good. And then Batman being like, "I'm not there yet. Don't touch anything."
Superman's
like, "I won't."
And then, sure enough, he is.
And then he goes down and he starts touching shit.
Yeah. I regret not putting that in my top 5. But because I did like the book. I'm utterly pissed off about Wally, but I know it's not going to stick, so I can't truly be truly outraged because it's not. There's 8 more issues to go.
Yeah.
It's nothing to get mad at yet. It's just the initial shock of okay, they shuffled Wally off to that sanctuary, and then he's dead. We don't even know what sanctuary is yet.
Yeah, all it is just a farmhouse where there's dead people right now.
And if you had to guess who the killer, who would you pick?
I think it's too early to even pick at anything, to be honest.
There's some speculation that everything you need to know to reveal the killer's in issue 1.
I would need to read it again, but it's definitely not Booster or Harley.
Maybe it's Booster.
I don't
PTSD.
I don't think it's either one of those.
I couldn't help but think of American Sniper.
I think it's going to be Blue Jay.
You think so? And then he shrank down and got eaten by the crows.
Tom King has brought in smaller villains on other things.
It's got to be something with PTSD, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think it's not going to be the big ones that they're hinting at. It's which one of these was it? But it was a good read. You'll get pissed off if you read it if some of your favorites are in there, but stick with it. I think it will have some.
Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack your number 1 there.
That's okay. The next one that was on my list was Extermination, number 3. Like I say, I'm a big fan of what they're doing and bringing it back, and it's crazy. I completely agree with you. It doesn't move the story ahead enough for it to end up as a pick, but I like the introduction of these 2 creepy kids who are able to convert anybody into a hound based on basically implanting psychological trauma that does years worth of torture in seconds. So Old Man Logan turned into a hound. One of Ahab's hounds. Nightcrawler turned into one. Teleports Scott out into the ocean, the depths of the ocean, and tries to kill him. I thought this was a fun book, and I thought it was just crazy good.
So, what I'm curious is, are this going to be lasting ramifications for these characters? Because, Rachel Summers or whatever, she is still a hound technically.
She still gets the manifestations, the physical ones of the hounds with all of the marks and kind of that infection. I don't know if it'll have lasting. I mean, Old Man Logan, hopefully that character just gets
R.I.P.
shuffled off away to hell and gone. And then Nightcrawler, as much as I like him, he's come back from the dead 4 times now.
Yeah,
it's about time he went back away. Like I say, I really like the character and everything, but nobody's doing him any justice, so why keep him around just to fuck with him?
Yeah,
that just seems like a waste to me. But ends with them going to be confronting young Cable, the X-Force team. So I'm curious to see what happens in this based on what they're supposed to be doing in the Solitary book.
Yeah, the X-Force book, so and it's it looks
a little confused as to what's happening.
Well, you ultimately know this Cable's going to be the new Cable. It's just it's.
I'm hoping old Cable body slides in and kills the younger one because he's from an alternate dimension or something and just set things right, just to really go crazy.
He didn't get the real Cable.
That would be fantastic.
He body slides in the past knowing that his future self's going to get killed, and so he goes back and takes out the younger Cable. Yeah. But it doesn't work.
So my actual pick of the week is Doomsday Clock number 7.
I knew it.
I've got it out on the top of my stack right now. Like I say, it was between those other ones, but ultimately I'm a sucker for a Dr. Manhattan story. This was the strongest of the entire miniseries so far. I really liked how they explain his appearance and things. I'm not a big fan of what he's done to the Alan Scott and everything, but I loved reading all of those components because Jeff Johns is actually doing a great job aping Alan Moore's Watchmen in the structure, and he's really nailed the voices of a lot of these characters. So I really, really like that component, and my favorite, like I've said before, my favorite issue of the Watchmen was the Dr. Manhattan centric issues. this very much had that same feel to it.
Even the movies, like those are the best parts too.
Yeah,
right?
Gary Frank's art is just phenomenal in this. Outside of Saturn Girl,
there was no outrage over the Mighty Blue Dong returning.
Yes,
only Batman.
Only Batman's. So I'm a big fan of what's coming from this one, and I have a feeling that this is going to, at the end of it, have a sweeping effect that just kind of fixes.
It's very much hinting at the idea that it's gonna kind of be the reset button, and I'm wondering if this is gonna not directly connect into Heroes in Crisis, but kind of around the same time wrap up, because I feel like, well, spoilers, it alludes to Manhattan seeing into a month into the future where he's confronted by an enraged Man of Steel, Superman, and then after like basically a punch, it goes to black. He doesn't have any, can't see beyond that.
Yeah. And
so he's left with the dilemma of wondering if, one, the unlikely scenario where one punch and it kills him, or two, does he react and destroy all of reality because of what's happening?
Yeah.
So it's very much a very Watchmen-esque kind of dilemma.
I think it was fantastically written. I think it plays out really well, and like you say, it leaves you with that bit of a cliffhanger. Yeah. Where I'm like, all right, game on. The downside is I think I now have to wait until about December to get the next issue. So this is going to be the painful part, is seeing where the rest of it is. The good news is I can still fill in the story. I can read some of it again and really try and piece some things together.
Is very much feeling like it's going to have the impact of a Flashpoint, which was also Jeff Johns.
Yeah. And Jeff Johns has got a big thing for nostalgic DC. So I can't see him wanting to walk away from it for too long. He wrote JSA, for God's sakes. There's no way he's going to kill off not using these characters. So
this is like
I think it'll go
I
back.
guarantee this is going to lead to the return of the JSA. It's going to lead to the return of the Legion of Superheroes. Like, they've been painfully missing.
I know they're back. I mean, if she's there, they're back in some way.
Well, this is a version of them which we're now finding out is altered, because essentially the Golden Age kind of didn't happen.
But she alludes to the fact that, like,
she's saying the future exists, so it's gonna work out. Yeah. And I do think that this is going to be the reset.
I think so too.
This is going to be the culmination of Rebirth, New 52, everything. And it's going to basically put the DCU where they finally, they either shit or get off the pot, right? So, like, it's not going to just pick and choose what they want in continuity. It's going to be like, definitively, this is where everything stands and this is where we go forward.
Yeah.
The elements that they want are going to be there, and the elements that they're cutting are going to hopefully be gone.
We're not all going to be happy with it, but that's exactly how it's going to play out.
Like, this is the book that, it end caps DC Rebirth #1.
Yep.
So everything that's playing out in between, like, this has got to be the reset. Like, I can't see it any other way.
Yep. Okay, so I think that's our issue for this week.
I think so.
All right. As usual, you can find this podcast on wherever you find your podcast, whatever podcatcher. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please like, rate, subscribe. It's the only way that we will get more listeners coming through.
You can also visit our Twitter at Comics Terminal.
You can find us, drop us a question anyway, at terminalvelocitypodcast@gmail.com.
Or visit our website, terminalvelocitypodcast.com. And you can contact us that way too.
Yep.
Just let us know how we're doing, any comments about the show. And
comments, questions, feedback, fire them off, and we'll be happy to talk to everybody. So that's it for this issue. I want to thank everybody for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
All right. We'll see you next week. Bye.